When I married Jerry, I was fortunate to inherit some real estate from my grandparents. They advised me to keep it confidential, even from Jerry, as a means of ensuring long-term security. While I trusted their wisdom, I didn't anticipate needing it until Jerry's behavior started crossing boundaries. For example, he often tried to re-gift items I'd bought from my family to his, using them to impress his parents. When I questioned him about it, his defensive reactions left me uneasy. Then, a recent incident left me deeply unsettled. I discovered $22,000 had been withdrawn from a joint account meant for household expenses, an account we both contributed to. I couldn't recall making any large withdrawals, and soon it became clear Jerry had taken the money. When I confronted him, he admitted he'd lent it to his mother, Kayla. Without informing me, he shrugged it off as a minor detail, claiming she needed help. The revelation struck me hard. Not only was this a substantial sum, but Jerry's disregard for transparency over such decisions made me question our relationship. I understood helping family in tough times, but taking shared funds without consulting me felt like a breach of trust. He brushed off my concerns, irritated, and said he'd let me know next time. Then he quickly excused himself, leaving me feeling that our early marriage's mutual respect had eroded. A few days later, I delivered a package to my in-laws' home that had been sent to our address by mistake. My mother-in-law, Amy, invited me in for tea, and though I planned to leave quickly, I accepted. While there, I noticed expensive cosmetics, designer clothing, and various luxurious health items around the house. Amy mentioned they were all gifts from Jerry, and my heart sank. This is where our $22,000 had gone. The idea that need had justified such lavish spending angered me, raising deeper concerns about our marriage's foundation. When I tried to process this, my mother-in-law turned defensive. "Jerry is such a wonderful, generous son, always taking care of me," she said, almost confrontationally. "But are you treating him well? I hear you're upset over some money he used for my sake." I realized then that Jerry had portrayed himself as a victim to his family, making me seem unreasonable for questioning his decision. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about respect, understanding, and honesty, all of which seemed lacking. I left their house with a heavy heart, feeling more certain than ever that our marriage might be beyond repair. In considering a future without Jerry, I thought about moving back to my parents' house, a two-story home built over 30 years ago. It once housed our family of 5 comfortably, but with my parents now aging, its layout and stairs had become impractical. Though there were a few adjustments like handrails, a single-story home would be much safer for them. With the passive income I'd set aside, I could rebuild their home to be more accessible and suitable for them in their later years. This vision of stability and security offered a glimpse of peace amidst the turmoil. Filled with a mix of resolve and relief, I called my parents to share my plans for a divorce and the idea of rebuilding their home. Surprisingly, they weren't shocked. Their calm acceptance confirmed what I'd been feeling. They, too, understood the need for a new chapter. When I mentioned the house project, their joy was immediate, and over the phone, I could sense their genuine gratitude. "We're so grateful you want to rebuild it for us. Thank you," they said, adding that even if they couldn't stay there forever, it would become my home someday since I was funding it. Encouraged, I replied, "I'll take it step by step, one day at a time. Just don't push yourself too hard," they reminded me, their words lifting my spirits. As I began organizing the house rebuild, I awaited a response from the construction company, but before things could move forward, Jerry confronted me angrily. "How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me?" he shouted, slamming his fist onto the table as we sat facing each other in the living room. I took a steadying breath. "My parents will live in the new house," I replied calmly. "That's impossible because it was built for my parents to live in," he snapped, insisting that since he believed our shared finances were involved, his parents had just as much claim to it. "Are you planning to cram 5 people into that one-story house?" he demanded, pounding the table louder. "Just give me the house, then." Realizing he might press harder if he knew about my passive income, I decided it was finally time to share the truth. "To be honest, I have a separate source of income," I told him. "My grandparents gifted me real estate that's given me passive earnings, and I've been using those funds for the house rebuild. I haven't touched our joint account for it." Breaking my grandparents' promise to keep it a secret weighed on me, but watching Jerry's reaction shift to even greater rage made their advice clearer. His face flushed, and his anger mounted. "What a lousy wife you are, hiding money, using mine while protecting your own." His words stung, but they also clarified the deeper issues at play, the erosion of trust, respect, and mutual support. As Jerry continued, his tone grew even more entitled. "I'll take the house as alimony. Anything you've built during our marriage is half mine. I am the head of this family, and if you keep disobeying, I'll divorce you myself." The dismay I felt was overwhelming. How had I spent so many years with someone who could so easily disregard my feelings, my independence, and my contributions? Initially, I had planned to keep the passive income as a safety net for both of us, support for unforeseen times. Like if Jerry's earnings fell short or if I became unable to work, I'd hoped to share it with him when the time was right. a small assurance for our future, but now, that thought felt impossible. I no longer wanted him to benefit from it. Needing space, I left the house and spent the night at a business hotel to clear my head and consider my next steps. When I returned the next morning, Jerry was waiting, wearing a sly, unsettling smile. As I walked in, he presented a sheet of paper with a smirk, divorce papers, already filled out. "You're lying about that passive income, aren't you?" he accused, voice dripping with suspicion. "Just an excuse for taking money from our account." His accusations were baseless, yet he wouldn't relent. Despite my honest explanation, Jerry clung to his own narrative. This distrust, his lack of respect, finally made it clear that this marriage could never give me the support I needed. I steeled myself for the next steps. Jerry shoved the papers into my hand with a smirk. "And don't forget, you'll let me know when my parents can move into that house, okay?" He patted me on the shoulder, humming as he walked out the door, saying he was off for a drink. In that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time. Throughout our marriage, he had masked his contempt, his utter disregard for my feelings and perspective. That truth stung but also freed me. Without hesitation, I packed my things, filled out the divorce papers, and left. I moved in with my parents temporarily, explaining the entire situation. They agreed I could stay with them until the new house was completed. The next day, my phone was flooded with missed calls from Jerry, and then he called again. I answered, determined to make this our final conversation. "Hello? All your stuff is gone." "Why?" he asked, sounding puzzled, as if he hadn't expected me to follow through. Why the panic? He'd pushed for the divorce. "This is normal, we're divorcing, Jerry, I won't be coming back. Feel free to do whatever you want with the space," I replied, calmly asserting my decision. A pause followed, and I imagined he'd just realized that I had an income beyond his reach. Then, his voice shifted to an oddly sweet tone I'd never heard before. "Hey, can you let my parents live in the new house? I don't care if I have to stay with yours, please." I was stunned. "I told you it's a small one-story house, and it's a gift for my parents," I said, unable to believe his audacity. He was trying to claim a house he hadn't paid for as his own to give away. His disregard for the truth was astounding. "You're just careless with money," he continued dismissively. "I had to worry about giving you an allowance and saving for both of us." His words confirmed my decision, showing how skewed his understanding of finances, and our relationship, truly was. I reminded him of the sacrifices I'd made to manage our expenses and his tendency to ignore that effort. He fell silent. It was clear he was trying to take credit for everything, even as he planned to give away the home I'd built for my parents to impress his own. It was both shallow and, ultimately, deceptive. The clarity was sharp. Moving forward without him wasn't just a choice, it was essential. "In the end, you're just trying to take advantage of my goodwill and claim what's mine. There's no justification for you to trample over my feelings and intentions like this," I said, standing firm. "I'm not giving you the house I built with all my heart for my parents just so you can show off." Jerry's voice grew louder, tinged with desperation. "But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I'll even tell them you built it, please. We're not a married couple anymore, remember? We're strangers now," I replied, reinforcing the distance his actions had created. On the same day he had handed me the divorce papers, I filed them without hesitation. He had been the one pushing for it, and yet, faced with the reality of our separation, he was incredulous. "But why? I didn't think you'd actually leave. Let's start over, let's be a good couple this time," he pleaded, as if unaware of the harm he'd done. How could he say that now? This was the same man who had squandered our savings, belittled me, and threatened me with divorce. There was no going back. "No, thank you," I said, adding cheerfully, "Please give my regards to your parents." With that, I ended the call. The next day, my phone was flooded with messages from Jerry, still insisting we get back together. His persistence was as baffling as it was unwelcome, only confirming my decision to move forward alone. He claimed he loved me, but it was obvious his real interest lay in my property and finances. To sever ties fully, I blocked all his contact information, along with his parents. Meanwhile, the new house was finally completed, and my parents and I moved in. Living in the home I had built, surrounded by support, felt like a fresh start. Later, a mutual friend who knew both Jerry and me reached out. I shared the news of our divorce, and she offered her sympathy, also filling me in on what had happened to Jerry. Apparently, he had abruptly resigned from his job, boasting that he no longer needed to work since he owned real estate. His bosses, unable to reach him for days, were left in the lurch. When he finally tried to retract his resignation, they confronted him, demanding an explanation. Unable to admit he had been banking on my income, he fabricated stories, but the truth about our divorce eventually surfaced, and his attempts to manipulate his job situation backfired. His former employer, seeing through his lies, refused to take him back. Now, Jerry, who had once scoffed at my passive income, was in a precarious position. He moved in with his parents, who were clearly frustrated with him, jobless and marked by the way he'd left his last job. He was left to face the consequences of his own choices. As for me, life has taken a brighter turn. I'm now living comfortably with my parents in the home I built for us, working in a job I enjoy, and feeling fulfilled. The passive income one once saved for our future together is now being used to support those who stood by me. This chapter has brought a sense of peace and renewal, affirming that moving on was the best decision I could have made for my well-being.